All right, today we're going to go over gametogenesis and non-disjunction. You probably have no idea what non-disjunction means, but you will. But just on the affix is using gametogenesis, you hopefully have an idea of what that means. Okay. So what I would like to do first is an abbreviated life cycle diagram that we did a few weeks ago, not even a few weeks ago, maybe a week ago, on how a man and a woman form a sperm and an egg, and that fertilizes to make a zygote. Then you have 2 cells, then 4 cells, then 8 cells, 16, blah, blah, blah. Then you have a morula, then you have a blastocyst, and then you have an embryo, and then a fetus, and then it's born into a baby, and then a kid or a child, adolescent, which is a teenager, all the way up to an adult again. So this is just going to be an abbreviated diagram of the human life cycle. It's going to get us started into going back into gametes, okay? So basically, this line is going to cut our little diagram in half. Everything above this line is going to be meiosis. And the cells are going to be haploid. Everything below this line is going to be mitosis. And everything's going to be diploid, 2-wing. So we're going to start with an adult male and an adult female. Something I mentioned in the videos last week was don't ever use the word kid. If you say kid, I'm going to correct you because you should technically say offspring. You could say mom and dad. I would rather you say mother and father just because it sounds more formal, more appropriate. You can say paternal parent or maternal parent. Pa means father, ma means mother. But don't say kid. So here's your female, here's your male, and they are going to be producing gametes. Now we're into the meiosis area. Males produce sperm, and females produce eggs. These are the only haploid cells in our entire body. These are the only cells that are formed by the process of meiosis in our entire body. You guys have between 200 and 250 different types of cells. This is the only one that's haploid. And this is the only one that's made by meiosis. And that pretty much does it for the top half of this diagram. It's pretty simple. What do you call the process in which an egg and a sperm join? There's 2 words you could say. Anybody? Fertilization is one. What's the other one? Okay, that's not what I was thinking, but you're technically right. What else? Begins with a C. Conception. All right. And what do you call that? What does the egg cell become when a sperm cell has fertilized it? It's a zygote. And that zygote, over the course of a human pregnancy, will eventually develop into a baby. And that baby will eventually grow up into an adult man or an adult woman. So as you all can see, it's pretty simple. In order to go from a single-celled zygote to a fully formed adult, we have to go through mitosis. And in order to make the cells to make a zygote, we need to go through meiosis. And that's what we're going to mainly talk about today. All right, so gametogenesis. What is gameto in reference to? Sex cells, that's right. And what is genesis in reference to? The beginning of. So, gametogenesis simply means the production or creation of, doesn't matter which word you use, production of gametes via meiosis. So when it comes to animals, meiosis and gametogenesis is pretty much the same thing. I will say that with plant cells, there are many plant cells whose entire life cycle, except for a very small part of it, is diploid. So we can't say that gametogenesis and meiosis are the same thing. What we say is gametogenesis is, it comes about because of meiosis. Now there's two different types of gametogenesis. The first one you have with males is spermatogenesis. Sperm means seed. So seed production. It's basically what spermatogenesis is. This is going to be production of gametes via meiosis in males. You know, I just kind of think it's, well, let's see how the other gender knows about the other gender. Only ladies can answer these questions, and guys, I'll ask you about the girls. See what you know. Where does spermatogenesis take place? Anybody know? Guys, you're not allowed to answer. Only the girls. Anybody know? Whoa. Okay. Guys, where does it happen? Ryan? Yeah.
I was going to yell something else.
It occurs in the testes. Now, fun fact. We'll see if the guys know this. Maybe the girls do. We'll see. Spermatogenesis occurs ideally at 93 degrees Fahrenheit. What is body temp? Body temp is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. We got problems. So how is it that sperm cells can be made if the body temperature is warmer than their ideal generation temperature? No, it's not when you're sleeping. There's less heat energy. Duncan?
When you're walking and standing up.
When you're walking and standing, what do you mean, gravity?
Yeah.
You're on the right track. Why would it be? This is gonna be on the video, by the way.
The formation of the organ is just like full circulatory air currents.
Ah, so now we're talking about meteorology. How about this? How about the fact that they need to have about 5 degrees lower temperature, that they are not even in the body? Testes aren't even inside the body like the ovaries are.
It's like a backpack.
It's more like a fanny pack. So, this is the reason why testes are externally located. Now, in our society and all across the world, there are people that experience fertility issues, and they can go see and consult a fertility specialist, like a doctor, go on, what have you. And one of the most basic things that a fertility specialist can recommend that the husband do is to stop wearing jeans and tight-fitting underwear. How would that benefit him to help to make more sperm?
According to Duncan, it would reduce the circulation in that area, and it cut off the flow of
What would?
The tight fitting.
Yes. Several years ago, when a lot of people, even guys, were wearing skinny jeans, I wouldn't point anyone out directly, but I would say things like wearing tight-fitting underwear or skinny jeans or stuff that really hugs your body actually traps the heat. You're hotboxing yourself. And so you're making it warmer, which can actually hamper spermatogenesis. I have some married friends that are trying to have a child, and they're having a rough go of it. And they told them, the doctor told them exactly what I'm telling you is, don't put yourself in positions where you're hot boxing yourself, where you're getting really hot. And so they had a jacuzzi, a hot tub, and he went out into the hot tub, and the wife came out. She was rushing. Goes, Adrian, get out of the hot tub. You're killing your sperm. Because those things can be over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and so she actually had a point. So he had to get in. He had to get out of there. Yes.
So is that a myth? Do hot tubs, do they make you temporarily infertile for the time?
I'm not saying it makes you temporarily infertile. I'm telling you that it can sometimes slow down spermatogenesis. Okay. So I would tell, there would be kids who, wait, I can't have kids? It's like, no, just stop wearing tight-fitting clothing to help better your chances of producing sperm.
But a hot tub, not that I would engage in any solicited sexual.
You sound exactly like someone in first period. I'm going to tell you, I know where you're going.
But a hot tub,
is a hot tub birth control? No.
Okay, no, I mean, it doesn't matter to me, but
Duncan, let me tell you this.
I don't know in a hot tub, so I don't even.
Have you ever heard of the cartoon from the 90s called, in early 2000s, called King of the Hill?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Hank Hill has a narrow urethra. That's like his whole gimmicks. They were lucky to have a son because the urethra is a little tube where urine and semen is able to leave the body. They share the same thing. His was very narrow, so very tough going. Well, when they went to go see a doctor, after they had their first son, they're like, oh, let's have another child. And they said, okay, Mr. Hill, we're going to need a sperm sample. It's like, oh, okay. He provides the sperm sample, and the doctor says, okay, we counted your sample, and we counted 100 million. He leans back like, huh, what do you think of that? 100 million. Yeah, the average is about 300 to 350 million. So, but how many does it take to fertilize an egg? One. So at 350 million, you just need one. So trying to say things like a hot tub, what if I were to tell you, what if hot tub maybe decreases your spermatogenesis by 60%? You still have like more than 100 million. So yeah, no, bad.
I was just curious.
And Duncan, I 100% appreciate you for asking the question. In this class, nothing is off limits. Yes.
So what happens if multiple sperm reach the egg? So generally the survival rate
One.
is fairly low.
As soon as one sperm cell enters, it's almost as if the egg cell forms a wall. There's a chemical change in the egg cell that doesn't let any others in. And her immune system destroys the rest of them. Yeah.
So when you were talking about hot boxing, type genes and stuff, is it over time it creates a long-term effect, or is it just
It shouldn't.
as soon as you stop?
Yeah, as soon as you stop, you wear short. That's something they actually did in that episode of that show. Is the doctor told him you need to turn down the temperature, and so in the house, in your pants. So he started sitting on frozen vegetables and started wearing shorts and had fans blowing up his shorts and everything to try to help lower the temp.
But is there a point where it's too cold?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then yes, there is. There is such thing. It's our bodies are like Goldilocks in the three bears. You don't want anything too hot, too cold, too acidic, too basic, too salty, less salty, too sugar. It's got to be in the right range. Everything has to be within the right range, and that's called homeostasis. Okay. And also, guys, when do you start producing sperm? Do you know? Puberty. Spermatogenesis begins at puberty. Which is typically around 11, 12 years old. This is the old AP Bio book. And this is chapter 10, Meiosis is sexual reproduction. See this old fella? That's his child. It says, Nanu Ram Jogi, at 90 years old, recently became the world's oldest new father. As he hoisted his newborn daughter into the air amid a throng of cameras, microphones, and reporters, he boasted that he plans to continue fathering children with his wife, Saburi, now 50, until he is 100. He cannot even recall how many children he has fathered over the many years of his life, but it is estimated that he has at least 12 sons, 9 daughters, and 20 grandchildren. Extreme cases such as this remind us of the huge reproductive potential of most species. So in other words, males will continue to produce sperm until the day they die or they lose their testicles, whatever happens first. That's why a lot of guys tend to get a vasectomy. It doesn't change your hormones. That's going to go in your blood. That only stops the flow of sperm. All right, next. Let's get to the ladies. Oogenesis. Ooh means egg. Genesis means creation of. So this is going to be the production of gametes via meiosis in females. Now, ovaries are located inside. So this does occur in the ovaries. You know, something we'll do in this lesson, actually, in this unit, I mean, before Christmas. Ryan and Duncan, if you guys have a lot of questions, wait till I tell you how you used to have ovaries and fallopian tubes and all that stuff. Yeah. And then what happened? What changed into what? We'll get into all that. All right. This occurs in the ovaries. Ladies, you are born. You're born with approximately 1 million oocytes. Those are egg cells. That's the sciencey way of saying egg cells. Oocytes. But upon puberty, about 300,000 remain. And of those 300,000, between 300 and 500 are ovulated during a female's reproductive years. And we actually did the math in my first period. This is very rough math. This isn't, you know, by the book. I'm by no means an OBGYN, but we're just kind of estimating it. We're saying a lot of girls start their period 11, 12, 13 years old, give or take a year or so. So let's say 12. Let's say you start your period at 12. And the reason they call it a period is because there's a period of time where it's a cycle, it's a menstrual cycle, but the whole point is to make an egg available for fertilization. It's all meant to get pregnant. That's biologically why it exists. And every 28 days, you shed an egg. In the 28-day cycle, that happens on day 14. It's called ovulation. The egg cell leaves an ovary. Some women have a little extra boost of luteinizing hormone, and sometimes 2 eggs are released. That might be genetic in some families. But nonetheless, day 14, the egg cell is released, and that's the prime time to try to get pregnant. A lot of people that are having trouble getting pregnant, the doctor will try to figure out at what day is the woman in her 28-day cycle. And she says, oh, okay, my last day of my period was 12 days ago. All right, well, you're probably going to ovulate tomorrow or the next day. That's when you should have sex. That would be the best time to try to get pregnant, about 24 to 36 hours after that. So we did the funny math here, and let's say that she begins her period on her 11th birthday, like the day of her birthday is her first period. So 11 years old, you don't have to write this down. And it's going to go all the way to her 55th birthday. On her 55th birthday, no more period. So just to make the numbers work here. So that's going to be 44 years of reproductive years. If you release approximately 1 egg a month, so we do 12 months times 44 years, that's about 535 eggs. And when you run out of eggs, no more. Guys will not run out of sperm. Ladies will run out of eggs. When I said there's about 300 to 350 million sperm cells per ejaculation, how many eggs are there? 1 at a time. And so eventually she will run out. What do you call that, where a woman runs out of her eggs? Yeah, it's called menopause. Pause means stop. There are the supply of egg cells has reached 0. Typically, there's some hormonal changes, perhaps behavioral. You can have that conversation with your family if you want to. I had a student several years ago say, I asked my mom if she had menopause, she hit me. Well, maybe that's a sign. I remember when my mom did, I was in middle school, and she was just different. Yeah.
So with some birth controls, you're not getting your period. So like, are you not ovulating, or are you just like?
Well, the reason why you go from 1 million eggs to 300,000 to 300 to 500 is because your body is you're only using the best ones to make a child. You know, you have these primary oocytes, you have these secondary oocytes, and you only want to use the best ones to really help make a child. And also, as you get older, they get older.
So do they just like die in your ovary?
They tend to not be as viable as they were when you were younger.
So okay,
But I will say
300,000 to 500. So what happens to the other 200?
they get broken down. You know, you got apoptosis. I will say also that if you take birth control pills, you got that little slip of pills, and you take one a day. And there's a lot of other forms besides pills. Pills is one of many nowadays. And there's like a set of 7. There's like sugar pills. They're total placebos just to keep you in the habit of taking the pill because you have to let your body just get rid of it. You know, you're going to have your period. Sometimes there's birth control that can delay it. You might have it once every few months rather than every month. Some will delay it even longer than a few months. Yeah.
How does the body discern which egg cells in the body?
Which ones? It's hard for me to describe. It happens really in the process of meiosis, which we're going to draw out. There's these things called polar bodies, which are going to be like de facto unviable egg cell nuclei, and then you have the real egg cells that are going to be the ones that are going to be just the lucky roll of the dice, the ones that will be selected to move on to the next stage of the cell cycle. Yeah.
When a woman goes through menopause, is it like longer, or is it just like any other period?
It's going to maybe be over a course of months, because there's a lot of hormonal changes that happen too, because you have fluctuating hormones up and down to regulate the menstrual cycle. Like for instance, there's a hormone called luteinizing hormone. The day that a female ovulates an egg cell, luteinizing hormone goes through the roof just to get that egg cell out, then it goes back down again. There's a lot of hormones that go up and down and up and down, and now that you don't have to ovulate an egg or have a period anymore, everything has to get back to it's kind of like doing another wave of puberty. So it's just a lot of hormonal changes. All right. So let's see. What I want to do next is let's quickly draw spermatogenesis and oogenesis because I want to get to non-disjunction. Okay, for those of you that have been good students and you've watched the video, can anyone recall what type of cell in our body is destined to become a gamete? It's a somatic cell. It is a diploid cell, same thing. And its destiny is to become a gamete. It's called a germline cell. So males and females have germline cells. It is diploid. And in males, we're going to call this a primary spermatocyte. A spermatocyte means seed cell. Cyte means cell, sperm means seed cell. All right, so after the first round of meiosis, you go from 1 parent cell to 2 daughter cells. This is called meiosis 1. And you now have 2 haploid cells. These are called secondary spermatocytes. They are haploid. And then you go through meiosis 2, which is where you go from 2 cells to 4. These are going to be called spermatids. And they are haploid. Remember that all these cells are genetically unique. Some sperm might carry an X chromosome, some might carry a Y. They only carry one sex chromosome. Yes?
If you're going from 2L to N for the meiosis one, why are you not doing the same for?
Did you watch the lesson on Thursday or Friday?
I watched the Thursday lesson, but it was about Gametes one, so I think it was.
Are you sure you looked at the chemistry one?
I think I looked at
You did look at the chemistry one. Look at the AP Bio one. Because I explained there how you go from diploid to haploid, then haploid to haploid. All right. Then you have maturation. And these are going to form sperm cells. Sperm cells are actually very easy to put together. It's basically just 3 things. It's a flagella, which is the tail, helps it swim. It is a bunch of mitochondria. And what do mitochondria make? ATP to give the sperm cell energy to swim. And then it has the head of the sperm cell, which is where the nucleus is, which is where half of the father's DNA is located. Yeah.
So those cells right there, they essentially just have the flagella added onto them?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
So
basically
it's
just the
just
cell.
those cells.
Right here, this little area, that's where the mitochondria are located to basically power the flagella. All right. And so as you all can see, spermatogenesis is pretty simple. Oogenesis is a little more sophisticated. So it does start off the same. You have a germline cell. This germline cell is diploid. And because this is a female, this is called a primary oocyte. And so we're all clear, this structure here is the nucleus. Keep an eye on that. Now, when you go through meiosis 1, basically the nucleus has divided, but the cell has not. Here's your nucleus. And here's something called a polar body. This is called your first polar body. This is basically a nucleus that you will not be using for fertilization. It's an extra one that will not be part of the final picture. This is a process of the egg cells being refined, being the best ones, because these are going to be, egg cells are what you need. This is what the zygote is. The zygote is just a fertilized egg. It's not a fertilized sperm, it's a fertilized egg. So you need to have the best egg cells. So after meiosis 1, that's basically all you got. And this is called a secondary oocyte. And it is haploid. Then we go through meiosis 2. But disclaimer, an oocyte will not complete meiosis 2 unless a sperm cell has entered the egg. It doesn't necessarily have to have fertilized it, but entered it. If you want to, what's the difference between fertilization and entering an egg cell? fertilization is when the nucleus of the sperm and the nucleus of the egg have joined each other. Just because you have put a seed in the ground doesn't mean it's going to sprout. So you need to make sure that the nuclei of both cells are joined. So let's say a sperm cell has entered this egg cell. It's trying to get to the nucleus of the egg cell. So there's our nucleus of our egg. Here's the sperm. And we have our first polar body. And we're going to have our second polar body. These are just divided nuclei that are not going to be part of the final picture. Okay. Well, next, guys, we're going to say that we have fertilization. We have both sperm and egg nuclei. This is no longer an egg cell. What is it? It's a zygote. And this is going to be diploid. 2N. So you can see how meiosis is different in females than it is in males. Okay, unfortunately, we're running low on time. So what I am going to have to do is to end class today with just the regular old meiosis. And then what we'll have to wait until Thursday is what non-disjunction is and how non-disjunction meiosis looks different than regular meiosis, okay? So this is going to be kind of like a to be continued situation. So the last part for today is going to be non-disjunction. So I'm sure you guys are aware that there are humans out there that are born with one extra chromosome like Down syndrome. And then there are people out there that are born with one less chromosome than they should. People like my aunt who has Turner syndrome. I said aunt, so she's female. A female typically has 2 X chromosomes. She has 1. So in her total chromosome count, she has 45. Someone with Down syndrome has 3 chromosomes in their 21st pair. All the other pairs have 2, except the 21st pair has 3. And that means that you take their whole total count, they have 47. So non-disjunction is where chromosomes do not properly and evenly separate during meiosis. This can lead to an individual having one too many chromosomes, so they have an extra one, or one too few chromosomes. So, there's students at this school that have Down syndrome. It happens a lot. They have one extra in their 21st pair. And then you have some people like my aunt in her sex pair, which is for humans our 23rd and final pair. That's your sex pair. She's missing one. And so that would be one too few. So here's normal. And let's say that we start off with an egg cell. This is a primary oocyte. It is diploid. And you're going to have the sister chromatids, or the homologous chromosomes. Now they're going to evenly divide. Here's meiosis 1. You see, guys, that's an even separation. Then we go through meiosis 2. You divide it even further. Each daughter cell gets 1 chromosome. Let's have a sperm cell here, 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 and here. Each sperm cell is carrying 1 chromosome. What's 1 plus 1? Every zygote should have 2 chromosomes here. This is how it normally should go. So I'm going to draw 4 zygotes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Each one has a chromosome from father. Each one has a chromosome from mother. This is how it should happen. But what we'll have to hold off on until Thursday is what happens when it doesn't go right. What happens when there's not a proper division. What happens when a zygote ends up with an extra chromosome or missing a chromosome. We will do that on Thursday.